have to ask you this, with all the acclaim and those things that Serene read out, what are the things that you feel proud of and make you happy in your life?
I love that question. I'm getting goosebumps right now. When people have asked me, what do you want to be remembered for after you're gone? You know, what do you kind of want on your gravestone? I want to be known as someone who loved well, loved God well, loved people well, just loved well. If they can say that about me, and that I loved my family well, like that my kids can like look at me and know that they were well loved, that my husband can say the same thing, that's a job well done. So I want to have a thriving heart before God, thriving family life, and thriving ministry. And that's going to look different at different points in my life.
You're an expert in inspiring people, and you're an expert in leading the way of just first love, devotion to God. This is The Party with Serene
And Pearl.
Get it right, Poddy.
So today is so special for Serene and I. We have on our special Talking with the Experts party, not just an expert, but a friend from the past who was such an integral part of our lives, Rebecca.
Yes.
Hi, girls.
Rebecca St. James is what people know you as, right?
Not you guys, though.
No. So we have so many memories together, and your family has this movie out, Unsung Hero,
Which was amazing.
We're going to talk so much about that. But you kind of live in the area now, so you came out here in the Potty Buns. So thank you so much.
It's a joy. This is so fun. It's like girl time.
I know.
So many flooding memories because your family, migrated over from Australia, and ours did too. Very similar time. I think you guys were just a year before us.
Probably.
And so many memories of those struggling years. And
but we can't get into that, Serene, before we do her special bio, because we're like Rebecca St. James. Many of you know her music. You would have heard of her. If you haven't heard of her, Serene, read her bio.
Okay. Among the most defining artists in Christian music history, Grammy-winning singer, songwriter, best-selling author, speaker, and actress Rebecca St. James catapulted into the global spotlight following the release of her self-titled Forefront Records debut in 1994. The Australian native's modern pop sensibilities and uncompromising lyrics set a benchmark in Christian music, leading a new generation of artistry in the genre. St. James has earned multiple Dove Awards, 9 #1 Christian radio singles, and 2 gold certified recordings. And her discovery includes such... That's actually a different word.
Discography.
Ooh, maybe. I need to learn a new word. Includes such iconic albums as Pray, God, and Transform. Author of the best-selling titles Wait for Me and Pure, among others, and she starred in the 2009 films Sarah Choice, portrayed Mary Magdalene in the groundbreaking rock opera Hero, and voiced Hope, the angel in VeggieTales. She's the best-selling Easter Carol. Oh, that must be the VeggieTales one. Okay, yeah. In addition to other
I'm firing you
diverse
for reading
roles.
bios.
Hey, this is like one of the most long, incredible. I mean, she is amazing. She's been in everything. Oh my goodness.
You're busy.
You don't have to read it all, Serene.
Following a hiatus from recording and touring, during which time she married and started a family, St. James returned to the stage in 2018 to perform with her brothers, multi-Grammy and Dove Award-winning duo King and Country, and co-wrote several selections on their blockbuster 2019 recording Burn the Ships. St. James recently partnered with world-renowned worship collective Bethel Music, and her label debut released July 24th, 2020. So she's been full-time in every...
And that's all very distinguished, but we just know you as Beck.
And Beck it is. Let's keep it at Beck. This is good.
Oh, yeah.
Girls. I mean, I want to go back to like when we first met. For those of you, I mean, we're having Rebecca here today because the movie about your family, and especially about your mum, Unsung Hero. Yeah. I only got to watch it yesterday, and I sat there and I bawled. I was so emotional. And it's not supposed to be sad. I don't know why I cried, Rebecca.
A lot of people cry with it. They laugh too because there's comedic moments that kind of help lighten it up. But
it was
a lot
amazing.
of tears.
And it talked about your family's when you came here to America and you had nothing and all you went through. And I was like, and then I saw the space where Serene and I met you, and that was right kind of at the end of that movie and you were still cleaning houses and still babysitting.
I remember spending nights at your family's home, in the home that looked so much like the one you were in. I'm
the
like,
movie,
they must have rented out the real thing and just like gutted it.
Yeah,
it was the same.
So
it felt like
similar.
the same one.
Yes.
But I remember babysitting with you and you bringing that money back and putting it in the family, pot. And it was just brought back such fresh memories because you were one of my first friends.
Yes,
in America,
I know,
and
we were.
it was just
Same.
It was just such amazing.
How
amazing
close was
memories.
that movie to reality back? Like for those,
very close. Yeah. I mean, and watching it now, it's just kind of crazy that we were so close to the poverty line. I mean, really, like we could have been kicked out from that rental house for being overdue in rent quite a few months, and then there's 6 of us, and Mum's pregnant with number 7, and no car, no food, no income, and I mean just the wildness of that. And every time I watch it I cry a ton, but there was also such a beauty to that time, and I don't know, like I think in some ways it gave me something to sing about, because I mean I went on my first tour at 13, got signed to the label, my label Forefront at 15, and then went full-time with music at 16, and so that is pretty young,
Yes.
And I think one of the things in the movie that was questioned was a label executive saying, what does she have to say about life or anything else, And that was something that I think people did question. But because of those hard times and then seeing God do miracles in our family life and given a car and groceries on the doorstep and checks coming in the mail, all of those things, I saw it.
Yeah.
So I was able to tell people that prayer is powerful and God moves in our lives, and he redeems. So it gave me a testimony, really.
Yeah.
How did it, like I was thinking as I was watching that movie about all, you as a family working to put food on the table, was that, and that was hard for your dad because he came from a lot of things reduced to not having a job and almost relied on you children to help bring in the income. It was an amazing time. I knew what was happening back when we knew you, but I didn't understand.
Not to that level, probably.
Really what it was like till I saw that movie.
Yeah.
How did that shape you? And
I think I knew a little bit more than you
Yeah,
because I
you
used to
did.
spend
You
time
and-
over
you and
there.
Beck were like-
saw all the
We did.
children
We
doing
did.
the
friends.
gardening.
I
and-
didn't really know. How did that shape you and your brothers and sisters for the rest of your life? Do you feel like it installed something special in you, or?
Yeah. I think there's a commitment to drawing together as a family in the hard times that was instilled in us. Like, all we had really was each other. Like when we came over here, we didn't really know many people. Dad knew a few industry people, but we didn't know many people at all. So we were starting over, but we had each other. We were homeschooling, and we clung together to the little Aussie community that we had, and then to God. So that's really powerful. I think it did establish this like prayer as a lifeline for me, because I saw the power of that. I also think it established a work ethic.
Yes.
That was probably already there, but really got tested and refined, because we had to pull together to survive. We had to do, the cleaning the houses and the babysitting and all the things. And I don't remember being weirded out by that, or we've got to give the money to mum and dad at all. It was kind of like we knew that it was like survival, and we all mattered within the family, and we needed each other. And I think that's really powerful to feel kind of needed and valued like that as a young person. So I don't remember resenting it, and I remember it being an adventure. Like we're sleeping on the floor on beds made out of clothes, but it's an adventure. It really
I remember when I was at your place in that time, such a beautiful atmosphere, a family atmosphere. In fact, I'll never forget. It's the first time I've really ever seen it, where your dad would just go around to the different ones of his children, say, "Hey, I want to make you a cup of tea." Like I remember him wanting to make you guys a cup of tea, and it was like something that you would normally see an adult do to a visitor come over, but it was like, no, you really matter, and I want to sit down and have a cup of tea with you. It was something I've never forgotten that, and it was just a beautiful relationship you all had, within, the parents to the children to the parents. It was very a camaraderie and a friendship, not just
we did have,
I'm your parent, but there was definitely a camaraderie that was refreshing.
Thanks,
and I do want to touch on the fact that Pearl said, how did it, affect you guys for the rest of your life? And we touched on a little bit of that realized poverty when we first came over. I remember our table was a rebounder, and the rebounder was our chair. Those little mini trampolines? We had a little mini trampoline given to us.
What? That was
and
your family
that was the
table?
And then it was also, the seat if you wanted to have a seat. But we've never forgotten the poverty, now that we run a business, we kind of like remember how it was to just count your 75 cents for lentils,
Yes.
And so we try and remember that in the way we price
Well, that's
things.
what I was going to ask you. I mean, I remember you saying, this is what I remember, we go to cleaning this week. And I was like, oh man, she has to go clean houses. And you were like, no, we love it. And it was this installed attitude in you. And then we just read your illustrious bio, Grammy winner, this, that,
It makes
star,
me a little cringy,
okay?
honestly. I'm like,
Star. And people think a certain life, when they think about that. And I'm sure the reality is different because we experienced some of that and it's not that. But did that ground you? Did that have an effect where you didn't, because you obviously didn't lose your mind. You didn't lose your humility. Was that a part of it?
I think so. I mean, I thank you for that. I value humility and authenticity very highly. So thank you for that encouragement. But I do think that part of those roots being so humble, it does stick with you. And I think you don't take things for granted maybe. And you kind of know the curveballs that life can bring. And I think there is more of a gratefulness for this season that is there because of walking through those challenges. I think I also know a bit about just what matters. Like we're really happy in those years. Like the movie shows a joy and a sense of humor that was there. And that was, again, I mean, Mum talks about the adventure beds, these beds made out of clothes with sheets wrapped around them. And it was this adventure. We were in America on a mission together and we were excited to be here. And I just don't think that I still take a whole lot for granted because we've gone without and we were happy and there was joy in the journey. And it's the relational part, right? We had each other, we had God. And we had a growing sense of community because really the church gathered around us. The church was who God used to bring the furniture and the car and the food and all of that and be the hands and feet of Jesus. So it changed me forever.
Yeah. It's amazing. And we kind of jumped ahead of ourselves. Like we're talking like we knew you back then, you and Serene were really close friends. Your dad, who's, a large part of that movie and that journey he went through. He managed Serena and I because we were little girls coming from Australia too, and you had a recording contract with Forefront. So when that part in the movie when he's taking you and you have to sing for all the record execs, that's what he did to Serena and I.
I'm sure he did with your guitar. I feel like I remember that too. And you're so talented, both of you. Oh my goodness,
that's just so funny because it brought back memories of sitting with your dad and having to perform live for these people. It was like.
We both did that. Girls, we both did that.
And then we were signed to the same record company, which was just so fun. So we end up being opening act for you. Yeah. And that was fun.
That was our first tour.
Yeah, that was your big tour and we kind of opened for you. So all those memories.
Yeah. Truck stops.
But I'll never forget too. You were saying, how did you stay, like now, obviously with this beautiful illustrious bio, you're so well known and you've had the opportunity to do some amazing things so well too. Pearl was like, how did you, just keep this authenticity and this humility? But I think what I noticed too on that tour was your father, an amazing grounding for you guys because I know that he, was a great encourager to you. Obviously, you see that comes out in the movie too. He believed in
belief,
you. But he was also grounding. And I remember him saying to you, Rebecca, don't believe all your
publicity.
Your publicity.
Oh, 100%.
Like he kept you grounded.
100%.
It was he was
do you
very
know what
wise.
he said to you once? And it was funny because on the movie he said to you, and you have a beautiful voice and such an amazing message. And he said on the movie, you have a beautiful voice, Becca, but you're more of a beautiful person. But I remember him actually saying to you one time, Becca, you're not the best singer in the world, but you've got something. So he would say it like it was.
And she's a great singer. It's amazing. But I think it was just his way of saying.
That's crazy you remember remember that.
I know what publicity does to people, and he was going to protect you from it.
Yes.
It was his wisdom.
Yeah. I think that I do remember a couple of things from that. I do remember that too, Pearl. But and I feel like he said something like that and said, but you're a great communicator.
Yes.
You're really able to connect with people. It was something like that. He did try to redeem it.
No, he wasn't being mean. He was encouraging you, but a different way.
Well, I think being in the music industry.
And being a realist too.
Right. And being in the music industry, he probably saw what it does to many people.
100%.
And he wanted
to young girls as well. Yeah.
Right.
And I think he was like, don't believe your own publicity, because if you buy into that, you'll kind of get a big head and it will ruin you in a way, because if you buy into pride, really, it can take you down. I mean, the Bible says that too. Yeah. Pride comes before a fall. I think he just didn't want to see that. Yeah. And then I also think he kind of warned me against making kind of industry people my best friends, because I think there is a transactional component to when you're working at a label and you're young and you think, oh, they're my buddies and all of that. But I think he encouraged me to seek friendships that were outside of industry people that were maybe making money off of what I was doing, Right. And I did end up getting having a best friend, like that I had at 16, and I'm still best friends with her, 30 years later. So I think there was a lot of wisdom that he was implanting at that time that did have this kind of stabilizing effect of, and there's an Aussie component to it too, and Aussie probably in New Zealand too, of just don't think too big of yourself. Like do the hard work, do the low work. But I think we, coming from that part of the world, have an idea of what authenticity is, and we highly value it.
Very valued.
And stay grounded. And that's if somebody says you're grounded, it's a huge compliment to somebody from our part of the world. Yeah. So I think there was that as well, and he was encouraging that to stay.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this then, because you have had a lot of success, and you did, in the music industry. Serena and I had very minor success in the music industry. We just, had a little time in there. But, at the end of that movie, it had some words on a screen. It said something about go home and love your family. It was, do you remember what they were?
That paraphrase Mother Teresa quote.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it was incredible.
Yeah.
But I have to ask you this, with all the, all the acclaim and those things that Serene read out, when you think about your life, are those the things that you feel proud of and make you happy? What are the things that you feel proud of and make you happy in your life?
I love that question. I'm getting goosebumps right now. So that quote at the end of the movie is, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. And it's a paraphrase of something Mother Teresa said. But, I mean, I love that you brought that up, and you might have an intuition about what my answer is. But what I've always said, when people have asked me, what do you want to be remembered for after you're gone? What do you kind of want on your gravestone? And I want to be known as someone who loved well, loved God well, loved people well, just loved well. If they can say that about me, and that I loved my family well, like that my kids can look at me and know that they were well loved, that my husband can say the same thing, that's a job well done. So I want to have a thriving heart before God, thriving family life, and thriving ministry. And that's going to look different at different points in my life, but in that order too. I want this to be right spiritually. I want to be right relationally, and then whatever I'm doing professionally, for it to come out of that overflow. And again, I'm not acing this. Like I told you girls off air that I'm reading this book, or just have been this last year, called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. And it's really encouraging you to slow down and not buy into this very action, hurry-oriented world that we live in. And you're checking your social media while you're doing your chores at home, and then you're doing work as well, and you're cooking, and you're doing a million things at once. Like that whole pressure gives a strain to us emotionally, spiritually, mentally, that we have to reassess and kind of go, is this working? And so I'm in that process right now, but those are my goals. That's my heart. And I do feel in the things that matter, I do feel a sense of joy and peace and happiness about those parts of my life.
Let me ask you this then. Okay, your turn. I'm saving mine, putting it in the locks in my brain.
Man, she always wins.
I love you guys' dynamic, and it hasn't changed in 30 years, and I love that too. It's so fun.
I wanted to say, just kind of like going on from that, you were saying, what really makes you happy and just what really gets you up in the morning, and what you feel fulfilled at. This actual part of our podcast is when we interview the experts. We have doctors and different people on about different things. But we want to have Rebecca on because we just wanted to see you too. But also because you're an expert. You're an expert in inspiring people, and you're an expert in leading the way of just first love, devotion to God. Because I have a memory, and I don't think I've ever told you this, Pearl, but this was before that first tour of yours. So it was just very, it was so authentic and real because it had nothing to do with you saying something on stage or saying something to me before stage like you were prepping for what you were going to say. It was just in your family van on the way to some youth group maybe at that first church that you went to. And I just remember you saying, Serene, I just read the most amazing thing in the Bible. You read me this verse and you were almost weeping over it. And then you read it again to me. You're like, but isn't that amazing? Like you were just truly authentically wowed by the word of God. And I had seen that in my parents, because they're pastors and they love the Lord. There's been such an inspiration to me. And, I felt a love for the Lord, but I had never seen a fellow peer or anybody lead me in such first love at that age. You weren't distracted by whatever. You were truly, you had a very pure worship heart to the Lord.
Thank you.
And I think that's why, too, obviously you're incredibly talented, but I think that the Lord blessed your open doors because there was a true worship of him. It wasn't for money and it wasn't for fame. And that was your answer to Pearl. No, that's not what makes me happy. It's knowing that.
So this is not a question. This is an observation.
It's an observation.
Okay.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
I did not say it was a question.
Well,
I was just butting in on your question.
I think it's a part B to your question, Pearl, actually, because you're kind of asking what's kept you grounded or kept you focused on maybe the right things, when the things that count. And I think, honestly, I never really dreamed to be a singer. Singer, it was, when I was 12, I think I said, God, use my life. I want to be a world changer. I want you to, use me to make a difference. I didn't know what that would mean. I had a hunch that there might be music because we'd been around music and been going to shows since I was a baby at Sydney Opera House, and Dad was a promoter. So we were around it our whole lives. It was the air we breathed. But I also wanted to run an orphanage and I wanted to act. I wanted to be in The Sound of Music. There was these other things. And so I just think having a little bit of that, if the music thing works out good, if it doesn't, it's fine. I think that also helped to, in the ebb and the flow of it all, to be a bit more hands open and less clingy to my stage time, or that's what defines me.
That answers my question that I was trying to butt in on Serene and get in then a little bit.
Okay.
Because having been in the music industry ourselves, not nearly to the extent of your length of time and your acclaim, I found, and it probably didn't do this to you, but I found it almost ate my soul.
Oh, yeah.
Do you know she had dreams every night? It didn't traumatize me, but she was like, Serena, I had another dream. I'm tuning my guitar. It won't get in tune.
And they're calling you on stage. Yes. Oh, night after night after night after night. I'd had dreams like that.
I do remember, though, at the end of that first tour, I remember because you just were so full of vivaciousness and energy and you looked like you had it together the whole time. But I remember at the end, the last backstage after the last concert, it was just like it was a complete exhaustion that washed over you, and I saw the humanity of it for the first time.
But I have a question. My question is, you were young. You jumped out and you had a lot of success as a young person, right? And then that was your career path forward, and it was so much of it was ministry, and that was your heart. But still, you're in this machine, and it's Christian music machine, and you have to sell enough, and you have to get enough people to your concerts and all that. How did you get through that? Because that is what ate me up, the stress of it all.
Yeah. Oh no, I did burn out.
You did,
for sure.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
When did that happen?
Probably happened I'd say 13, 15 years in, probably something like that.
Okay, so a good while.
But it had been festering for a while.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of give. And I mean, there was tours. We did a 13-month tour once, involved international as well. Yeah. And we were just barely home at all in that time. And we'd be doing a tour and writing for a new album and working on the album on the road and a book and, you know, just kind of craziness. And I think there was a goal of just being good stewards of the opportunities we had at the time, and we were working hard and all of that. But I think I did not know the value of guard your heart, because out of it flow the well springs of life. I didn't know how, if you don't heed that, you will pay the consequences. So I ended up really losing my voice, actually, from the stress of it all.
Just exhaustion and stress.
And it was more panic attack related in a way, not a traditional panic attack, but I'd be on stage, and if I was emotionally exhausted at that particular night, I would struggle to breathe. Wow. And so you have to be able to breathe to sing. Yes. So it was very humiliating, because it was just like I'm mousy with the way that I sing. Like I can barely, get much out, because I don't have enough breath to really like sing out, and I lost my power. Like I lost the power of my voice. And then it moved into not being able to talk. Wow. In certain kind of toxic emotional situations, I would struggle to even speak. Wow. And so at that point I was like, okay, my body is shutting down on me, because I have so not listened to these red light warning signals that my heart has been telling me for years and years and years. And it is shutting down out of protection, because I won't do it. So my body is doing it. Yeah. And I mean, that's what happens, right? Like if we ignore the signs of what's going on in our bodies and our hearts, like it will catch up, and it did. So at that point, I moved to California. Wow. And I was like, I've just got to change my life. I've got to make some different choices. Kind of getting out of the kind of Nashville fishbowl is how I described it at that point. And not that I needed to rebel. I didn't. I still loved Jesus, still believed everything I was singing. Yeah. But I just needed a change of scenery. I needed to sow into acting a bit more. Yeah. And I met my husband out there. And I just feel like if it hadn't gotten to that place of pain, that place of agony, that place of burnout, I probably wouldn't have looked at anything different, girls. Like I probably wouldn't have made the shift that I needed to. So I see it now as very redemptive. Yes. And we're currently working on a book, actually, and I'm writing about all this stuff. Like I'm in it right now, like talking about those things.
I didn't even know this, that you went through that depth.
A lot of people, most people don't. I haven't talked about it publicly very much at all.
I did hear through the grapevine somehow that you were just, and this might be wrong, but it was just like, how were you ever going to find your personal life if you were constantly just on the road? That was your desire, was to get married and have children.
Always. And that's what it says at the end of the movie too. Like, Mom, I always have wanted to be like you. What I'm saying is I want to be a wife and have children.
You would always say that. And I used to, our paths drifted because we went in different directions with our family, and then we started this business. And I always thought, and this is, before you met your husband, I used to pray for you, Lord. Just bring him. Yes. Because I knew your heart.
And that song, Waiting for You,
was a family. I wanted to ask you this all these years. Yes. Was that a long, hard wait? Did you doubt God at some point?
Yeah. I questioned very intensely if it was going to happen. And honestly, when I had my vocal issues, Wait for Me was one of the hardest songs to sing because it represented that idea of hope deferred makes the heart sick. And my heart was just so sad about the fact that this dream had not come true.
You were public. You were this young girl singing Wait for Me, thinking it would all happen. And then it didn't, and it didn't.
Year after year after year. And I'm in my early 30s.
Doing this.
Oh, I know. There was such a vulnerability to singing that song, to talking about it, to just publicly waiting for that person and knowing it may not happen. I might have spoken all these years about that, and then it may not happen. And there's no guarantees in this life that the things that we long for are going to work out. So definitely I wrestled with God about it. And I think before I met my husband, I think I was still burnt out. And there was a part of me that felt like a skeleton, like emotionally, emotionally, mentally, probably in some ways spiritually, but I believed everything I was singing. I loved God still. but I felt so depleted because it was almost like I was still functioning. This like, and anorexic in that I was still functioning, I was still doing, but I wasn't absorbing the nutrition that I needed to actually thrive. And so it had been eating into my own selfhood for a while. So I do remember feeling that, but I also had, I think, come to this place of, Lord, I have a song on an album that's called I Can Trust You. And the chorus says, God, it hurts to give you what I must lay down, but when I let go, there's freedom found. God, it hurts to give you what I've held so dear, but because of your love, it's clear I can trust you with this. I can trust you with me. I can trust you. And I get goosebumps talking about it. But I think he'd brought me to this place of, if this doesn't happen, Lord, give me the strength to still love you, be obedient to you, keep this preciousness that we have in our relationship. There was a laying down of that, but I still so hoped, right? And then, Serene, the last time we saw each other was my wedding shower. Here. It was
so beautiful.
Well, when
and
did
God
you
redeemed that, right? Because your husband 100%. Is all that you could
He's
have ever dreamed of,
amazing.
not
He's
more.
extraordinary. And
but when did you start becoming whole again? Was it before you met your husband, when you were out of just finding who you were again on your own outside of this machine, or was he a part of you becoming whole? He was a part of it,
100%. 100%. Because I think there was a grace that he showed me in our relationship where it was like I could come as I was in my woundedness and in my brokenness and in my hurt. And he just didn't expect the world of me. Like, it was like I was enough to just be with him instead of do and perform. So he was a part of it. I think the process had started before that. God had started to restore, but he was a huge part of it. And having a family has been a huge part of it. Coming back to music. I retired for 5 years. Coming back to it has been a part of the redemption too.
That's so beautiful.
Beautiful. I love that.
I love it. And the story of, oh my goodness. So you and your husband right now are working on a book together.
What is it going to be called?
It's called Lasting Ever. And it the subtitle is Family, Music, Faith, and Being Found by True Love. Because I think God in his grace did bring us together. We were found by his love separately, and then by our love together. Like he orchestrated both of those things. And there's a grace component. Like, we didn't earn this or humanly orchestrate it. He did it. But we're talking about our family, family and faith and music and just all of that. And he was in a band called Foster the People too. So when I met him, his song Pumped Up Kicks was just exploding on the mainstream scene. So then we traveled the world, and I went to SNL and watched him perform on that, and at the Grammys, play at the Grammys.
So you weren't the famous person. You were
100%,
and you loved it.
I loved it. I was in the house being proud of my husband and just traveling the world with him for those first couple of years of marriage. It was awesome, and it was great because I was able to relate to his world and the beauty of that music thing and the challenges of it and the isolation sometimes of it.
You had gone through it before he did even.
So we were able to connect over that, like the highs and the lows of being in music, and it was really extraordinary, and I'm so thankful that we had that.
Now, and God put you two together obviously so clearly, and he was part of your restoration. I'm sure you were part of his, but 13 years of marriage now, and your beautiful daughters here.
3 children.
But I mean, in your book, do you also talk about the struggles of marriage?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, surely 100%. Even though God brought you together, you can have some days, right?
100%. Oh yeah. And we're in the thick of it right now. Like we're our deadline really is here in the next month or two. So we are like about halfway through the book, and so we're kind of making some of those decisions, but 100% we want to be authentic about the highs and the lows, because all of us are experiencing that all the time. Every day we're experiencing highs and lows and challenges and curveballs. And my daughter, who's 10, who's here, we were just talking on the way here to see you guys about how every day there's just problems in life that you have to solve. And especially as a parent, so just navigating marriage and the vulnerability of that, and that your spouse can read you before you even say anything. There might have been something that hurts my feelings. My husband can see that on my face before I even say that hurt my feelings. And then resolving that with, conflict resolution, and then parenting. I mean, in this day and age where there's extra pressure, I feel like on our kids, and mentally and emotionally. There's just so much going on with all of us. So it's a lot to navigate, and we're going to be very, very honest about all of that.
Yeah. I love it.
I think that's important.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that.
Because we see ourselves, I think, in what we read. Like if it's authentic and you show up as a human being in your story, whether it's in a song or whether it's in a movie or whether it's in a book like this, we connect with it. We're moved because we see ourselves and we see a part of our own story.
Yeah.
So 100% we have to be authentic.
You have to,
about
and I
all of
loved that the movie. Go back to the movie because I'm such a fan because it was yesterday when I
it
watched.
was so excellently done. Like
the
acting, and oftentimes Christian movies can
be cheesy. Let's just say it.
Yes.
Let's just say it, shall we? There was
but
not.
there was none of that.
Okay, and I loved what you were talking about. The realness was in there. I don't know how accurate was it. When your mom slapped your dad's face.
She did do that at one point, not at that point, but earlier in their marriage.
Obviously, that's not perfect, but I was so glad it was in there. It was like that was real pain, and that made us all relate.
Yes.
And I was just like, when I was watching that movie, I felt like I was just putting myself in so many situations. I felt like we'd lived parallel lives and coming to America and then doing the music scene and all of that. But just the experience of, the little homeschooling children and so much of it. But it wasn't all made to be, hey, we're perfect.
No,
there was
definitely
serious,
crazy.
There was crazy stuff and pain and relationships and the hardness. And when, your dad was in bed when his dad died and the grief. Yeah. And it was like, we have to show these things.
Definitely.
We can't just be on our little pedestal saying, you do this and you do this and I'm up here perfect. Because
it's the redemption of those dark moments and the struggles and those valleys that bring such amazing, epic, when the victory comes.
100%.
It's like, it's so much more real and just...
And rich because you've read about the valley, right?
And I want to ask you a question because, pretty much in your earlier years and your tours, you had a definite voice. It was a voice to your generation of purity.
Yep.
And that was amazing. And now you've come back to music. And what is your, is it the same,
messaging?
Yes,
not so much.
Yes. What is your messaging now? What is the thing
that
is behind your songs? I know you have a lot of beautiful worship songs too, but what is your messaging?
I love that question. Thank you for that. I came back to music, 6 years ago or so now. It was, So we had been really in a winter season. Cubby had parted ways with the band and that had been difficult. We had 2 miscarriages in between our first and our second child. It was just a really hard season. I think I was processing my burnout. Yeah. I think Cubby was processing his own personal pain. And then we were just... neither of us really were fortified, I feel like, enough to even really encourage each other in that time. It was just this is just hard. Yeah. And we don't know how God's going to redeem all these losses, all this grief. We do trust that he's good, but man, this is hard. Yeah. And I wasn't singing at that time. I'd kind of quietly retired after having our oldest. And I was asked to do this cruise in Alaska actually, and the whole Small Bone clan was going to be on the cruise. My brothers were performing. They wanted me to perform. And so I said yes to it because it just felt like the right yes, even though I still had my vocal issues. Wow. I was still about to cry before going to sound check for that cruise. Wow. I mean, this is the level of I was. Oof. Heavy. Yeah. And I remember going out on stage and I felt the Holy Spirit say, hey, I really want you to be very authentic about the pain you're in right now. I'm calling you to a new place of courage. Generally, up until that point, I wanted to tie things up in a bow and, this is how it all resolved and isn't this all good? Yeah. And I felt God just saying, just show up with your story where you're at right now. Yeah. And I did. And there was pretty much not a dry eye in the building. I sang maybe one song. I just shared where we were at in our winter season. And I just said, we are just trying to stay open-handed and trust God in the pain. I've got goosebumps just talking about it. The Holy Spirit moved in my heart in such a profound way while on stage that I realized I missed the connection that I have with God when I sing. So there was that moment. But it was almost like dawn and a sunrise and a spring had come to my heart. Wow. And then I saw my past differently. I saw all the burnout differently. I saw that God had been with me. I saw my future differently. And I walked off stage and I said to Joel, my brother, I think God just called me back into music. He just did such a transforming thing. It was the most transformative moment of my life.
Really?
Like in minutes.
right.
And it came from your
a
transparency.
step of, and the step of faith to go out there even when you had your voice lost.
I was crying on stage, which I don't generally do that.
Yeah.
Like I generally do not do that. And so I'm crying on stage, the audience is crying. It was just very powerful. But it was this pivot moment for us. And we were in California. We'd said, no, not going to move back to Nashville, and my husband didn't feel that either. He started looking at houses without us even talking about this change. Wow. God had been moving on his heart as well. He started looking at houses in Nashville, and we both talked. And it was on my 40th birthday too. Oh. We went and did a 40th birthday trip right after that, and just shared with each other what had happened in both of our lives. And we're like, what? You too? Yeah. Like your heart's just being changed. Wow. So we call that kind of the beginning of our spring season. And I fell pregnant with our second daughter immediately after that. Wow. And then we have had a third child since then. Amazing. So it's just, so in essence, very long-winded answer to your question is that my new message really is that God can bring such a beautiful spring from your winter.
Oh, I love it.
That you hold on to him in the hard times. Yeah. And even in the movie, the song "You Make Everything Beautiful" is a key. It's kind of the key.
Kind of prophetic when you think about it.
It was, and I wrote that actually right around the time I'd met Cubby, actually. Yeah. So I wrote that 13 years ago, and it was used in the movie. The writer decided to bring it into the movie, and I'm so glad he did, because it just. It represents what God did 6-7 years ago in changing our lives and restoring so much. And we'll all go through winter seasons, and we'll all go through spring seasons, right? Like or sometimes it's a combination of both, actually. Yeah. But I think my message is hold on in the hard times. Be honest, be vulnerable, be real.
Well, what a
God can handle
message for people, because so many people are
in that right now.
Yes,
but we're all
in their winter.
And I want to. Well, I was going to say yes. There's spring and there's restoration and there's newness and there's promises revealed, right?
Yeah.
But like you said earlier, there's also in that promise revealed spring still problems, right?
Still hard. Yes.
So, I used to always think if only then I'm going to be happy. When that happens, when my husband's like that, or when I'll be happy. And I've stopped it.
Good on you.
I just stopped it. Just bunch of junk.
Yes.
I mean, our
because then you're holding
is
out
now,
all the time for a different season and not being where you are.
Yeah. And that's
not
joy,
being present.
right? Because joy isn't about
in circumstances.
Yeah, it's not about circumstances, and it's so much more stronger than just happiness.
You go with your question then, because I've got another one.
Maybe it's not a question. Maybe it's just an observation. I better tell you.
You'd love to do those.
Searching for my question that's not there. Or maybe it's a question too. I haven't even formed exactly what I'm going to say, but it just wanted to come out. I think, and that you are experiencing maybe a deeper, richer, more incredibly grateful marriage because of the desperation and the struggle and the brokenness before that. And I feel like maybe if just everything happened the way you wanted to, and you got to run your orphanage and have 15 children, and you found that guy just straight away, that it wouldn't be as felt as...
It's definitely an observation.
Not as rich.
Yeah.
No, I agree. 100% I agree. And even now I'm telling the story of what God did in restoring the years the locust had eaten, and I hold on to that scripture because I do think he's in the business of restoring and redeeming our pain and bringing beauty from ashes. But I just think that he's done that so much in my life, and I tear up very easily thinking about the fact that I have a husband, thinking about the fact that I have 3 children.
And he must be loved so well because of that,
I'm so thankful in a way that I don't know that I would have been this deeply thankful.
That's big, Beck, because think about that. You say, I have a husband. And so many of us say, I have a husband. But just the comparison and the perspective of grateful, I have a man who loves me. Wow.
Yeah. I know. And we've been through stuff together, We've been through pain together, and we've done the highs and the lows, and then we can also now speak and share in our book from that place. And I think people are hungry for something that's real. I think they're hungry for something that's authentic, and that vulnerability translates in a way that just pretending like our world is perfect and all great doesn't.
And I feel like when you go through something with somebody, you said you go through stuff, but I think that's what creates the depths. And my husband,
100%.
My husband and I have been through an incredible amount of stuff too, just with, my oldest son, he's in the room. He was battled 4th stage cancer. We almost lost him. Wow. And then, of course, we did 6 adoptions in 1 year, and it brought a lot of strongholds from their country.
Wow.
A lot of cray-cray. And I remember one night throwing my wedding ring across the floor,
Wow.
Like, I don't even know if I told you that.
Yeah,
but
you did.
There was some massive pain. But right now, when I look in his eyes, we go out on a date, look in his eyes, I'm like, I would not know the depth of character that my husband has. I would not know the rock that he could be.
Yes.
I would not know. It's like he gave me a tour of the treasures within him when we went through stuff.
Yes.
Because when it's all just birthday cakes and lollipops and just Easter, I'm telling you, it's just, I wouldn't have known him. I really know him because of the struggles we've been through.
100%.
And that's what.
And
that's
even
what
when they're not
it.
perfect through a struggle too.
No, it's not that he
but
was.
They're just there.
Yeah, they're there, and they stick it out with you.
Yeah.
I think there's something to that. Every single one of us desires to be known and loved, and in that order. Known. You've got to actually be deeply known to be fully received and fully loved. And that's when it's its richest, because you've gone through the stuff together. And there was this part, Serene, in your intro, you mentioned Sarah's Choice, which was this movie that played the lead role in, and I was an unmarried pregnant girl, actually, ironically, in the film. It was a long time ago, very long time ago, pre-meeting Cubby. But there's a character, like a mentor character in this film that speaks to the boyfriend, in the film. And he says, he's encouraging him to step up and kind of marry Sarah. And he says, marriage, there's something extraordinary that happens in marriage when you stick it out. Yeah. And when you choose to love this other person. And he said a lot of people give up when it gets hard, and they miss out on the beauty and the riches and the glory of sticking it out and getting to the other side. Yeah. And I do feel that we're in this season right now of, we look at each other on a date night, similar to what you're saying with Sam, and you just go, man, we've been through it, but how beautiful is that to have gone through that.
It's our fine wine marriage season.
You have to age in the barrel for a while.
Yeah, there you go.
Fermentation, there's some bubbles and some stuff that comes to the top.
Yeah, that's true. That's good. Fine wine, I like that.
But it's just so much, it has so much more essence and depth.
And beauty.
That's what I love about series too. This is probably just such a bad analogy. Sometimes I win them, sometimes I lose them, but with analogies. But like long series, instead of just the 1.5 hour movie, I love sometimes
like a TV series.
Yeah. A series where you really get to know the character. Boy, do you love them more.
Yeah. Like Anne of Green Gables with Anne of Avonlea. And then,
the latest one about the vet. What is that one again?
All Creatures Great and Small.
Have you ever seen the latest All Creatures Great and
Small? What's the character?
Siegfried. He's such a cray-cray. But the more you get to love his quirks.
Yeah.
It's like, I love you for your quirks. You're so weird and I love you.
We've done some life together. TV personality.
But speaking of that and fine wine and marriage and the movie bringing it back, because that's what I do. How are and those of you that have seen the movie, and your mom's such a big part of that, and your dad, I just love the way they were played. I feel like it was really honored and represented well. How are they?
They're doing well. Yeah, Mum's, I think, 69.
How many years marriage for them now?
40, 50, almost 50. Wow. Yeah. Wait. 49, I think.
Did they 49. Like the movie? Did your mum like how she was played?
Yeah, she's funny. I think she doesn't cry too much through it. Dad cries a lot through it. I think Mum, where she cries is at the end where it says the where are they now? Oh, yeah. And she connects with where everybody is now and what they're doing and all of that. So, yeah, but they had to promote it. They had to work their tails off to promote this movie. Really? Oh, yeah.
What did they have to do for it?
Oh, tons of media, so tons of in-person premieres. And
really?
They just launched it in Australia too. Yeah. In some ways, the boys, or Joel and Luke in For King Country and me, are like, wow, Mum and Dad are getting a little bit of a taste of what we've gone through all these years. And it's kind of a bit of a full circle moment,
it's so funny,
honestly.
Though, because when we were, touring with you, all of the boys were on board.
Yeah.
for you. Like it was the whole family went
together.
And it's so beautiful how God just he honored the years that they
had been
serving other members of the family, where God honored that and opened up for their giftings, like not just the King and Country Boys, but I noticed it when it says, where are they now? All of the siblings, that it's like every single one of them, God has opened up.
I have a question about King and Country. So for people who don't know, Rebecca's brothers, not just Rebecca, went on to have a very, very big career in music. So that was kind of at the time when you were off the scene, right?
So check this. Not many people know this, actually. And I don't know if I've ever really talked about it that much, but publicly. But I retired. I burnt out, retired. Probably thought I would never sing again, honestly, for the rest of my life. And Dad had been managing me that, nearly 20 years. He went straight over to the boys, and they blew up within a couple years.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it's just that family kind of
huge.
Yeah. And they, they'd been opening up for me for a while.
Yeah.
The church kind of like the church as a whole kind of knew about our family. There was almost a trust that was already there that they didn't really have to work too much for, because the gatekeepers, I would think you would say, within the music and the Christian music world trusted our family. So they were able to really springboard into it at a high level real fast.
But I want to know how that was for you. Were you just like, go guys, this is great? Or were you like, I'm empty and they're full? Or what was it like? Was it both?
Probably a bit of both.
Yeah.
I'm really proud of them and always have been, because it's good to see good people prosper, honestly, and they're good people. Yeah. So very proud of them, and they're excellent at what they do. Like this show is extraordinary. It's up there with probably any mainstream show you'll see, just on the production level, and what a quality piece they bring to the table in everything that they do. I think I did struggle for a while to go to their shows, because it was kind of like, I think it. And it's funny because there's been a documentary that's been made about our family that's yet to come out, will probably come out, I would say, within the next year or so. And there's a part where I'm interviewed, and the interviewer said, do you feel jealous of the boys? And I said, I don't feel jealous about like what they do. If there's a point of longing or jealousy, it's that they get to do it together, that it's shared. And I think for me, I felt very alone, and I felt like I was carrying like everything for so long, and that really wore on me. That's the part that made it hard.
Because I often think of all the things that we've done together, I thought, imagine if I had to do that alone.
Yeah. We say this to each other all the time. We would never be doing this.
Blank,
we would have stopped.
She can fill in. If she goes blank, I can 100%. Fill in. Like if whatever, it's just, it's...
And on the days we want to quit, we'll tell each other, and the other one will be like, well, we're not quitting today. You know?
Yeah, you're strong for each other.
So your brothers have that.
They have that. And I think that probably is a question that I will ask God in heaven, is... why was I alone in it?
He trusted you, though.
It's true.
Yeah.
And I think there is a dependence. The relationship that I have with God has been refined because I think I felt inadequate for everything I've done. In my aloneness, maybe, and in the fear and the vulnerability of it. Yeah. Going on stage on my first tour with Carmen at 13. I mean, to books and films and all of it, all the things I've done, I've felt my inadequacy. So I think there has been a just driving to my knees and driving to God that is beautiful too, is. In the pain of it,
Right.
Do you still hear back, you changed, even Serene just being with you, talking about, your walk with God, inspiring her, but you were in front of hundreds of thousands, probably millions of people back when you were a young woman. Do you ever hear back from you hear back? Does it seem
Especially
all worth
now.
it then, even though you felt like physically you burnt out, mentally, but do you hear back about life's changed?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, and back then I would hear these stories of you saved my life, or I decided not to commit suicide because of you, or I stopped cutting because of a show, or I became a Christian at your show, or I'd hear all these stories, and it would be powerful, and there would be part of me that would take it into some degree, and I would just, I think I tried to deflect a lot of it too, because that's God doing any of this good stuff, But I think I have more space in this time in my life to actually take in those stories.
Yeah.
Like we did another Alaskan cruise actually just recently with the family and a ministry that I'm also part of, because I lead worship once a month in Dallas and with a wonderful church there called First Dallas. And we did this cruise, and there was people that came up on that cruise that just shared that my ministry had so richly encouraged them in challenging times in their life. And I think one of them, I think it was on that cruise that they were sharing that. And I mean, I'm doing shows too, so I'm out there kind of hearing these stories, so it could have been a different show. But just saying that my song, Wait For Me, they used, I think, in their wedding because it had helped them to be strong in those like times in their life where there was pressure. And I think it was a second marriage. That's what it was. Wow. And they were like, we're going to honor God and hold out for his way. So it was just really, really sweet to hear those stories and have more bandwidth to actually take it into.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah.
We just feel so blessed. Thank you for coming and that you've been so open and vulnerable about, the times you went through. I never really knew to the extent of what you went through. I only knew you moved to California and I didn't really know, but it just builds up my own spirit to see you in this restorative time.
Thank you.
And that God,
it's such a deep place too.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I think there's a sense right now, because I'm doing a parenting and I'm not the expert. You are very kind to say that I'm the expert in this moment. I don't feel like that at all. But I'm doing a co-hosting a parenting podcast with Focus on the Family, and I'm kind of sitting in the seat of like receiving all this, goodness from my co-host who's got a doctorate in family and parenting, and then we're interviewing these other experts. But there is this moment, I think it's a moment in time, Pearl, and I think this is what you were speaking to, is when you kind of weathered through some things, whether in marriage or parenting or life, there is a deep well that can be drawn from in offering what you have to other people. And so I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, no,
I
that's
think
good.
there's something to going through stuff, because then you have so much, not just compassion, but you have something to give from that.
Some wisdom maybe that God's given.
Well, there's a lot of people that go through stuff, but they don't end up hanging on to God. It has happened with other Christian music artists. I mean, it has happened kind of frequently, but here you are, strong and anchored, and that it is something to, I don't know, it just kind of inspires me, and I love it, and thank you for doing that, but also saying, hey, it wasn't easy, it wasn't perfect.
Well, we've got each other in these times in our lives, right? We need to speak about our stories, because I think it encourages us.
So that's the podcast you're doing. That's with Focus on the Family.
So we need to
that comes out weekly. Tell us about that.
Yeah, it's called Practice Makes Parent.
Okay.
And I just recorded some actually today, and it's just great, because it's like we have 3 kids under 10. And so I'm just mining for gold and getting all these like ideas of like my mind is just at the end of these podcasts is just overflowing with kind of ideas, practical ideas that I can apply to my own parenting. So that's what we want to be as a resource.
Yeah, because a lot of our listeners, viewers, they're always like, hey, guys, got any other good podcasts? So, I mean, that obviously sounds like a good one.
Definitely. And watch out for that book coming.
And the book.
Lasting Ever.
Lasting Ever.
And it'll be out for Valentine's Day next year.
Oh, really? That's great. So what else? What else can we look forward to from Rebecca?
Well, we are looking at doing some new music. I can't tell when that's going to come out, but there's some brewing.
And when you say we, that's just Rebecca, or is that you and your brothers, or is that you and your husband?
I have put some music out recently with the boys. That may happen again. That's right now it's just kind of me. Putting those out, but I always team up with producers and a team. I always feel like it's a collective.
Yes.
It's a we.
I love
me.
that you say that.
Fun.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
so good.
Well, we're excited about all the stuff that's yet to come.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm glad we're connected again.
I know, me too. I love it. Maybe when the book comes out, we can.
Yes, absolutely. We'll definitely have you back. That'll be great.
And you could meet Cubby.
Yes,
bring him. We never met.
Yeah, I don't think you ever met him.
No, that'd be
that
good.
Would be great.
Okay, well, thanks
Would
again.
Where
do people go to find you these days? Like, do you have like your own website?
Facebook,
and stuff?
Instagram,
that shares
website,
what you're
all
doing
of it.
and all
Just
that.
Google my name; it'll come up.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, thank you.